Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rage here. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend, and I want to wish you a good Monday morning. It is February the 24th. We are starting the work week today, and you are starting it off right with episode 6 of Delete the VODcast. So this episode was actually really intense. Some of it was really hard for me to talk about. You guys will understand once you get to that point in the podcast. But it was really good, and we also did this one live, and a bunch of people came out and really enjoyed it as well, shared their stories, their experiences, and just had some general good conversation with us, and we absolutely love having you guys. So it's been really fun at this point. So if you guys have been supporting the channel and supporting the podcast, I sincerely appreciate it. I know Bailey and Justin sincerely appreciate it. We all get super excited, and it's been a blast to this point to do this, and I'm excited to do episodes throughout the entirety of the year. So our goal this year is to get 50, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less episodes this year. So we'll see where we end up at, but we're gonna have some more good topics coming for you guys soon. We've got some cooking streams that I'll be doing soon. We got some more stream stuff that we'll be doing soon, and we'll talk about all those things later on. But for now, we're gonna focus on the podcast. Anyway, this episode is really good. I think you guys will enjoy it. I hope that you do. Feel free to leave any feedback or any other similar stories that you guys might have. Doesn't matter how long the story is, in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. We look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the live chat after you watch this if you are new to the channel. So enjoy the podcast. I'll see you very soon. Have a good week, and yeah, I love you. Bye-bye. What's going on, guys? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Delete the VODcast, episode number 6. Today, we are talking about fear and what scares you most. We're going to be exchanging stories of things that have happened to us personally, and we're also going to be talking with the chat today. We are live for the second time. Episode 5 was live. If you guys were there for that, you can check that out on the YouTube channel.
Check it out.
It was super successful, and we had a lot of fun doing that with you guys, and we're doing it again today. So we're going to be looking for you guys, for your experiences. We've already been exchanging some things here in the chat, and it's really interesting to say the least. Anyways, we're going to get into everything starting now. Now we do the hey bitch, hey. Okay. Anyway. All right, so if you guys are here in the chat, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. It is a beautiful, sunny February 21st, Friday. We are going to be talking of ghost stories and things that have happened to us personally. I've got a lot of ammo on this one, as I'm very susceptible to things around me. I don't know what the word is. It's what is it when you feel how someone feels? I don't know. Well, like
empathic.
And I'm empathic, right? So like I feel things.
I didn't know there was a word for that.
Yes, there is. Get educated, okay? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love you. I'm sorry. That was rude. Anyway, no. So I feel things differently. So when I walk in a room, or I walk down the street, or I drive by something, it's very hard to explain. It's not like a psychic thing, but like I experience things differently.
Like the aura.
I feel things. I feed off energy. We've talked about this before. Yeah. So like
vibes and stuff.
When something is wrong, I feel it on my body. I feel it in me, and I know immediately that something bad is about to happen, or something is wrong with someone, so on and so forth. So when I don't know how to explain it, but when something is affected by something in a very negative energy, or an energy that just doesn't make sense or doesn't belong, I feel that. And I believe my sister is that way in some regards too. This is a really weird conversation, like, to have. Like, I'm not a psychic, like, but because I can't see the future, like I can't predict what's going to happen, but what I can tell you is when something's wrong, I pick up on that immediately. Or when something's really good, everything feels normal. I don't really know how to start this. I have a lot of experiences. Justin, maybe if you want to start us off this episode and kind of get into your stories, I'd love to hear what you...
Mine isn't really like ghost related or like paranormal or any of that. Like, it's more, I guess, my own fears.
Sure. And you know what?
Back in high school,
we could talk about what scares us most, actually. We could talk about fear, and you guys in the chat can throw in as well. Fear is... I believe that fear keeps you alive, actually. Fear makes you on your edge for, like, on the edge of your seat for good reasons. It should keep you in check, I believe, personally. But anyways...
Yeah, I have another side to that.
So I want to hear your story, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. A lot of us have fears that are like irrational, and like we know, like this fear I'm about to say, I know it's just like it's kind of stupid, and it's just I should look past it, but for whatever reason I can't. Like it's just so there's like a flip side to it, I guess. So in high school I had to get my shots for college. I forget what they were, but there was one, it was like you had to go back every 6 months a couple times to get like each round of it or whatever. So I was like super nervous about it. Going, just I was so unsettled by the whole thing just because I don't like shots to begin with. It just thinking about like a needle being inside of me, it just skeeves me out. And like whenever they insert whatever vaccine it is into you, you kind of like feel it inside of your arm. It's just like I just skeeved myself out over the whole thing. So it was a horrible day just to begin with because I knew I had to get a shot. Eventually,
so I know you said you had an irrational fear of shots. I heard all of that.
Yes, I had a fear of shots. The day was just horrible because I didn't want to get the shots. And I think I was kind of my worst enemy, and just building up to it got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, I did get the shot, and I felt like I was gonna pass out. I got lightheaded, like cold. It's weird talking about it because like I could feel myself getting cold just thinking about it. So like they laid me down because they knew I wasn't all right. So I laid down for like I don't know if it was like 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was. Then eventually, like, I guess I felt like I was good to go. I think my dad and mom was there at the time. And, like, we walked out to, like, to pay or whatever. All I remember is I left the room, made a right, went down the hallway, and it just is black. Like, that's all I remember. I woke up, like, my heart was pounding. Someone was looking over me. I was completely ice cold. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, my ears were ringing. It was just complete shock. Like, I thought I died and got brought back to life or something. And I was so confused because, like I said, it just went from walking in a hallway to just black. So, after, like, the ear ringing stopped, I kind of, like, was aware of what was going on, and like they were giving me like juice or something to kind of get, I guess, like my blood sugar up to kind of get me moving again. And I was still like just disoriented, and so what happened was I passed out, and I must have just like fell back and hit my head on the ground, and I ended up getting a concussion from that, just from like that little fall. It was just like a horrible experience, like
so
feeling like that cold, like.
So let me ask you this: had you had shots before this point?
Yeah.
And you never felt like this before?
Not to this extent. Apparently, whatever vaccine it was, it happens to people. Like, I guess that specific vaccine. I don't know if it's like a psychological thing.
So what I want to focus on here is that you felt, and this is what I was talking about. Like, you felt nervous and scared before you even knew that.
Yeah.
And this was the first time you felt like
shots.
So you knew, like, going into shots.
It wasn't maybe to this extent, but yeah.
So essentially you knew something was gonna. Well, you thought something might be wrong at some point way before you ever went.
I guess, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. See, and that's the sixth sense that we've talked about before. You always have to trust your gut and everything. Like, and that could be just completely coincidental. Like you're just scared of shots, and maybe that's just what's an overwhelming. Like I'm going to get the shot. You know, I'm fucking concerned. Or it could be that your body knew that you're about something was going to happen. Something was going to happen to you. Yeah.
Like ever since that day, ever since that happened, like I had severe anxiety from just like that whole scenario. Like I can't go some places because I just get so anxious overthinking that I'm going to pass out and that whole thing is going to happen again. It's like really bad in areas where like I don't know anyone, cuz like I don't want to just pass out where I don't know someone who's going to help, kind of, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's just it's one of those things that like scars you for life.
So
Yeah,
and like it's definitely gotten better. But even like that was high school, and I'm gonna be 23 in April, and like it still like affects me.
Well, that's like PTSD. So like something that is an irrational fear is no longer an irrational fear because you had this experience now where you've passed out and you've fallen back. So now, like if you see a needle, it does make sense. And now I could see you as a guy that will never get a tattoo because that's a needle going thousands of stabs per second.
Though.
That's I don't know.
That's a little different, like, but that's a very small needle
it's
we're
like
talking about.
Surface level.
Like, yeah, but I don't like needles anyway, and then I have.
I didn't even know you had that. That's cool. That's sick. Anyway, so let's talk about you, Netzy. What do you fear? Do you have any fears at all? It's okay if you don't. Like you don't have to, or nothing that you know of. Like that's completely an acceptable answer.
But it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like fear based. So like. But it's more of like an anxiety thing. So like background kind of story, I guess, is I've had like an anxiety disorder since I was 11, and I'm like 21 now. So that's like a decade of pretty intense anxiety for that basically entire time, which is wonderful. But there's like little things, and like as I get older, the more I kind of like click into like where things have come from or like how I feel about certain things. So for example, like. In the same way that you might feel like, oh, something isn't right, for me, it's like, is something not right, or am I just having a bit of like an anxious episode kind of thing?
Yeah.
But there's like certain things. So like repetitive beeping sends me into panic attacks. And I was like, that is the most it'll make sense. It's like the most irrational thing. It like stresses me out. Like on a deep level, it stresses me out. Right. And then I was thinking, I was like, well, why? Like what has gone on through my life? And also kids crying as well. Same thing.
So like, well, yeah, kids crying gives me anxiety. So and this just a little like to add into what you guys are saying. So if something is very loud, like if my smoke alarm starts going off when I'm cooking, my everything, like all my senses become super amplified. I hear 10 times better. I see 10 times better, and like my heart's racing. Like I'm so aware of what's going on at that point, and I turn it off immediately because it sends me into a sensory overdrive. Anyway, go ahead.
So I was thinking about that. I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and I was thinking about it. I was like, what's happened in my life that has, where both of those things have been relevant in a stressful time, right? So I was having a little bit of a think. Also, slight side note, I was 7 weeks premature. So I was like, I think 4 pound 3.5. I was a tiny baby. Anyway, so I spent the introduction of my life in a plastic box in intensive care in a hospital. So I have severe anxiety in hospitals. I can't stand repetitive beeping or babies crying because I was in intensive care for like a month.
That makes dude, that's nuts.
And I'm like, I'm 21 now, and that shit still is like,
So I would say that the beeping was probably like a heart monitor or something in front of another kid or something, or you like, even. So
a bit of a kind of explanation as to like why that is. Let me just grab something. So the size I was then, so you have like those little wrist things with have your name on them and shit. And I'm also the same with needles because I had to have loads of injections as a baby, but my wrists were too small to have injections in, so I had to have them in my feet. I still have the scars from them now. And my wrist was too small to put the name badge on, so they had to put it around my ankle, and that band is this size. it's because I can wear that band around my thumb like a thumb ring.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how big my ankle was as a baby. But yeah, there's like a bunch of stuff like that which is still very relevant. But I'm very much like going through like a fairly, not to get super deep, but going through like a fairly traumatic upbringing, and all this stuff puts you on edge, and a lot of like potential. Hi Zoe. Hi Zoe. It puts you in like a position of like fear, like not fearing the worst outcome, but being aware that there could be a negative outcome in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, flying. I hate flying. I hate it. I can't do it. Like I have like kind of a rational fear of heights, but it's one of those things where if I'm like scared of heights, I'll just do it. Like for example, rock climbing. I used to be freaked out by rock climbing, but as soon as I get comfortable, I'm really good at it. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just certain things which I just can't do. Like needles is one of them. Hate them. Can't do it. Ugh. Tattoos are fine because it's a whole different complex. But heights, needles, horses. Shit scared of horses. But big dogs. I grew up
Any
with
reason for the horses?
See, I don't know. I don't know why I have any. But like I've had because like so basically my girlfriend has horses. Like her and her family are really big horse people. So they've got like multiple horses. Horses, and so that kind of helped a bit, but they still freak me out. Like I've had like really vivid dreams of being like kicked in the spine by a horse and shit, and woke up and like being physically in pain. It's really odd. But like some people are really scared of big dogs, but I grew up with a Great Dane Ridgeback, so I'm not scared of big dogs, you know. So yeah, I mean this is the thing. A lot of my fear is like anxiety based, so I don't know what is fear and what is anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I had pretty like horrific social anxiety for like a really long time, up until like maybe 2 years ago, maybe around then, 3 years ago, like to the point where like I wouldn't leave the house, kind of thing, which is kind of humorous, the fact that I'm a musician and I have to play in front of a lot of people quite often. But yeah, I mean, I completely get the whole sensing a negative atmosphere kind of thing, but whereas on my end of things, it's presented in more of an anxious way than it is a fear way, if that makes sense.
So it's hard for you to distinguish what the difference between fear and anxiety. But like,
because
I was gonna kind of expand off of that in a different story that you could probably relate with a little bit. So ever since I was young, I always had a fear of going to cities for whatever reason, just like being around big buildings. I never knew why. Like there should be no fear. I never, like, I'm in New Jersey, and I've gone to the city like maybe a handful of times in my entire life, and like there was no real reason for me to be afraid if I've never been there. And just like being in the atmosphere, just being, it's just something about the buildings. And like, so I went to the New York Auto Show in like 2015, 16. And the entire time, like the train ride there, just being in the city, like I couldn't look up because I knew like the buildings were there. It was like this monster kind of like, it's like looking over you.
It's overwhelming is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like, and I don't, okay, so what the things that scare me, I don't know. The things that scare me are like realistic things, like dying alone or like losing a loved one. But I never had this fear before, like until recently. I don't know why, but I was never afraid of like really anything until I got really high up on a roller coaster at an amusement park, and like I had no sense of like fear of heights before this, but I hadn't gone in years. And out of left field, they put us on this ride that shoots straight up at like 60 miles an hour and comes right back down, obviously. But, excuse me. Yeah, I got up like on the ride and I had a panic attack. That I thought my harness was coming off, and I'm like grabbing this random person next to me, like, help me. Like, this is going to come off. I can feel it. I can feel it's coming off. So like I didn't have this fear of heights until recently. I don't know why, but now like if I get super high up, if I look down, like I have anxiety. I'm gonna fall over this edge if I even if I'm in the center of a roof or somewhere really high up and the edge is like really far away from me. I'm like, you guys got to get me down, because if I go anywhere near that, I'm gonna fall off. I guarantee. Like I just have this overwhelming fear of that, and I never had it forever.
You get flooded.
Yeah. It's like that sensory overload, like that we talked about, like everything, dude. And I just so aware, like, and I just don't want to go anywhere near it because I really feel like I'm just gonna fall over, like, and I don't know why. And I never had that fear before.
I think a big thing with all of this is like finding the root. So like for me, I think what I finally like attributed that fear to was so like everyone knows that like 9/11, like the Twin Towers got hit. Like I was 4 or 5 when that happened. I think it was in like kindergarten, preschool. And for whatever reason, I had like a day off and I was watching cartoons, and they just like, all I remember is they cut the TV to cartoons, like from cartoons to the towers getting hit. And that image is like burned in my head. And that was at a young age. That's the first experience I ever had looking at like, or like thinking of this big city that's just like miles, like 20 miles, 40 miles from my, like where I live.
Yeah.
And now I guess whenever I go there or I look at it, it like, that fear is now like burned in my head. And it's like, it's helped to kind of, I guess, put the pieces together and try to figure that out. But it's still like, if I go near any city, like I go to college in a city that's pretty close to there, and like when I was first going there, it was horrible. Like taking the train there, like I thought I was gonna have a panic attack on the train like every single day, because like I was going to a city, and like it's at the end of the day, I could just tell myself like it's a city, it's not gonna do anything to me, like nothing's gonna happen.
It's interesting that you like it, that makes perfect sense. Everything that you said it's like correlated to each other. Like it makes a lot of sense.
You eventually piece it together.
It takes a while though.
I think I was 14 or 15. No, I was 13 or 14 when the towers got hit. And something that it gives me anxiety just thinking about it for some reason. Like it didn't actually personally affect me. Like I didn't know anybody, thank God, that passed at the towers. But I remember being in school that day, and we were it was either social studies or English, I can't remember. We were mid-class, and the door gets bust open by 2 teachers. They come running in. One of them's in tears, and like, and I just like we're all looking at each other, like all my friends and I, like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? And the janitor like comes running in with a TV on. They had it on these stands with wheels, like typical middle school stuff. Comes running in, rolling this TV, tears rolling down his face, just in a panic. And all the teachers are whispering to each other. And I remember like him going over to the teacher that was teaching us. Her name was I don't want to say Miss S. We'll say Miss S. And he tells her, and she gasped so loud and dropped the book, like and I just remember that book smacking the floor, and it was loud, and it started to make my heart race. And they turned it on, and the first thing that I saw was that plane hitting that tower and blowing up. And she was like, and she said it to us crying, like, you guys need to watch this. It's scary, but this is our history, and you need to see this. And we watched it, and I remember they did what they called an evacuation plan that day, and they got all the kids out of school everywhere nearby because the nation was in such a panic that these terrorists were going to attack everywhere. There was reports that it was happening elsewhere, but with no visual footage at the moment. So everybody was in a panic that they were talking about schools, and every school around me, emptied. And to this day, like I think about that, and it is like PTSD. I was exposed to things at a young age. Like that's young to be exposed to people throwing themselves out of building to not burn to death. I watched that. And if I watch the footage, like, it chokes me up, and it's not because it's sad. It's really
unsettling.
sad, but it's
Yeah.
like I saw this when I was a kid, and I wasn't ready for that sort of fucking destruction and like
Yeah.
horrible
Yeah.
event. Oh man,
mean,
dude, I fucking
when-
hate.
When you see things as a kid as well, because obviously, as you develop and as you mature, your sense of reason and your sense of understanding of things obviously develops and
Mhm.
evolves through your experiences. Hence, why you have the judgments you have, or the viewpoints that you have. So when you go through traumatic stuff as a kid, if you think at like at a base level, like think about the point of maturing as a child is you learn things, you develop, and then like, for example, speaking. Like, you just learn to speak,
Mhm.
and that's just something that's rooted in you. And in the same way, if you go through traumatic experiences at a very young
It
age,
grows with you.
that will grow and evolve
Yeah.
with you. So like for me, not to go like super deep, it's a bit deep, bit emotional.
we're
But, like,
we're getting
so
deep.
I've grown up like without a dad basically my entire life, right? So from the age of, I want to say 5, right? So if
Mhm.
you think about fundamentally, you have a mum, you have a dad, you have female role model, male role model. They both show you what's important in both of those things, right? That is how normally it should be. Is you should have a male influence, female influence, basically caring side, working side, whatever, however you want to put that as what you develop from both your parents. Obviously, it differs from person to person, but yeah, that's what it is. So from the age of 5, I didn't have a male role model at all, basically, like at all. So it was just me and my mum. And there's a lot of stuff you don't learn, and there's a lot of mentalities you don't develop, and so on and so forth when you go through that. And I know a lot of people have gone through that. But like, I have like a really irrational fear of the police, and I didn't really click why. And then I realized the last time I saw my dad, he was being pulled out of my house by police, and that's something that is like PTSD burned into my head, which will just not go away. Because I don't know what happened, but to me, as a young person who didn't understand what was going on, all I viewed it as was the police are taking my dad away.
It's
That
just
was
like
it.
police bad. Like at that
Yeah,
age,
exactly.
that's
It's
all.
very
Like,
primitive mentality.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't know the reasoning behind it. I was 5 at the time. All I saw was the situation and took that for how the situation was. At least it was in my mind. So now, like, I'm just like always pissed off with police, and they do a really great job. Like, police are great, but if you have like deep-rooted PTSD because of that, I can't change that mentality. Like, it just happens, That doesn't mean I'm gonna go like start fights with police, but it just means that because of how I've grown up and developed through that, it means that that's quite a difficult like thing. But I've only clicked that after growing up and kind of understanding the situation.
Yeah, that and that's actually like a huge stigma in America. Like, a lot of kids, American police and UK police are completely different because obviously America's riddled with weapons. But a lot of kids are like, their dads are just fucking around bullshitting, and there's so many like. I pay attention to this stuff because I have a criminal justice background. So like, I'm reading articles all the time, like people busting in and taking so and so away, or dad's dead, been shot dead by police, and leaves behind a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. Like, you see that stuff every single day. So to me, that it makes a lot of sense, and I think, and they've actually done studies on this in America, and they've had interviews with people like, why do you hate police? Well, and a lot of the times it'll be like irrational, foul language, like fuck the police, blah, 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 blah. But they did this and this with my dad or my parents when I was younger, and I don't like police now. Fuck them. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. It's a big issue. And obviously it's everywhere. So we've talked about a little bit of everything that we've talked about to this point is, except, well, not necessarily. Yours was irrational in the beginning, Default, but it's not anymore. Now it actually makes sense for you to be afraid of needles because you've had this traumatic experience. Let's talk about things that are irrational, things that you might be scared of that are just kind of stupid. Like, for me, something that scares me that it's really dumb. Like, so if you guys, and I'm gonna open up about this for everyone to hear and see for the first time. I don't ever talk about this ever, but something that really, really scares me that's irrational as fuck is the movie The Grudge. For some reason, something about, and I don't have any direct like experience that would cause me to be irrationally afraid of this fictional or this whatever, this make-believe monster in this video or this movie. But for some reason, like I've seen thousands of, like 1,000 scary movies, not thousands, but tons of them. I've seen every scary movie you can think of. I still watch scary movies to this day all the time. I play horror games, but for some reason, pale women with black hair, just, it's something about it. It scares the fucking shit out of me. And I don't know why, but I remember being in that movie theater, like I went and saw it, and it's projected on this huge screen, and sitting in there and watching this, and the whole time I'm like leaned back, like tied up against my chair, like sweating. At some points I'm even like this, like mind you, I'm grown when this movie has come out, and I'm literally screaming, like how I do in horror games. I'm screaming in the theater, like I can't watch this. And of course, like, and I was like, no, I went to get up, and my girlfriend like held me down. She's like, nope, you're watching this shit with and like people around me are laughing, so like I start laughing because I'm like, nah, hell no. I'm like I'm trying to get out of the theater. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm getting the fuck out of here. But I don't know, like for me that's a super irrational fear. And that's something that, and it's still to this day, if I see it, if I see a still image, or if I hear that noise, or if I play a game with a pale woman with black hair or dark hair, it absolutely gets a rise out of me that I cannot explain. And it's a stupid ass fucking fear, but it's something that scares the shit out of me.
I get you though. I get, like, all right,
so what's something that scares you? And chat, please feel free to chime in on this. Good to see you, Sammy. Hike, what's going on, dudes? Mincy, what's up, man?
I'm the same. I fucking hate horror movies. I cannot. I just can't. I just can't do it, right? So the thing is with me is obviously I've got a background in like digital media, video making, movie making, and music. Now that I understand how that stuff gets to you, I'm not as susceptible to it. But like, for example, if you think there's a reason that fire alarms are set to the pitch that they are, right?
Hey Vec, how you doing, man? Yeah.
And it will just get to your brain in a way which is just like, I'm really on edge now. And it's like, it's a very like, very, very root kind of thing that just puts you on edge. Because it's like the same kind of frequency as someone screaming.
But that's not irrational though. I think that's a genuine fear.
No, that's not irrational. It's a genuine thing, right? So in horror movies, they do all these things. They'll use like weird intervals that put you on edge. Not because the music is scary, just because fundamentally
they tap into like the primal
alert
brain that's still in
so for me, I can't do it because it will literally send me into panic attacks. So if I can't watch horror movies like at all, I just can't do it. Because I was younger, I remember I was staying with my auntie whilst my mum was away, and she was watching this horror movie and thought it was brilliant, thought it was hilarious, and like it's given me like deep-rooted PTSD. I can't even remember what the fucking film's called.
So what's the last horror movie you watched?
The last horror movie I watched.
If you don't want that, to me, like it's so funny because that's different for me. So like me, I can't go like my life. I can't live my life without watching horror movies.
I can't do it. No,
but you can't watch any.
Never actively watched a horror movie.
I'd prefer not to, but
really, both of you
can't do it.
It depends what it is.
Wow.
If it's like a ghost movie, I usually will laugh at it just because I don't know. I don't want to say I don't believe in ghosts, but I think if I was ever confronted with a ghost, I'd want to like make the most of the experience and like try to talk to it.
Okay. So you're the person. You're the person in horror movies that I see that's usually dead because they're doing dumbass shit.
Oh, hey man.
Once you bring gore and stuff into it, that's where like psychological stuff. I don't like that kind of thing. It just.
So I can tell you. So now that we've talked about irrational fears, Sammy has an irrational fear of wet wooden spoons. I that's the one thing that I've grabbed from the spam of the last 5 minutes of chat. Which Sammy, for whatever reason, I have no. Maybe you got your ass whooped with a wet spoon when you were a baby. I don't know, but that's the only thing I can think of. But I forgot. That is the most ridiculous thing next to pickles. Yes, there is a woman that's afraid of pickles on Mari. And maybe I can I'll link the clip to that if you guys want to see that in the description for this YouTube video.
Not the pickles.
It's the feeling of them when they are wet. That is really fucking weird to me. Like you have a consistency fear. That's a very irrational fear. Hey Cheyenne, good morning. Sleeping.
That's like
an irrational fear.
Is it sort of
what?
Is it sort of like the foam fear? Like I don't know if you guys have this, but I hate
Foam
the texture
fear?
of foam. Like
No,
foam. Like
I don't think it's fear. I think that's just it's
just
an uneasy
the
feeling.
texture, like you said. Yeah. Like you saying the texture feeling, like foam or like styrofoam. Like
I think it's just
it makes me uneasy.
So like the same thing with me with sandpaper and chalkboards. If I feel
Does
a
it make you,
chalkboard,
like, shiver and
it
go,
like my hair stands up,
Yeah.
and like if I hear nails or watch somebody, like, ooh,
Oh,
it
dude,
just
I've got
fucking
goosebumps just thinking
yeah, it
about
just
it.
gets me all fucking. So that's not really. I guess that's not really a fear. That's more of an anxiety sort of thing, and that kind of attributes to what we talked about with loud noises. Kind of sends you. But
Yeah.
you know, when something is loud and it's happening, like it puts you into an alert mode because that's a defense mechanism. So like when you hear like a fire alarm or like a loud bang or like a gunshot or something, you're instantly like, okay, my body's got to be ready to take whatever's about to happen because just to stay alive.
Yeah, it's like fight or flight natural mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
A while ago, like this was years ago, I was watching a show on like kind of like this sort of thing, and they were kind of going into why we don't like certain sounds. So like like styrofoam on styrofoam, like that squeaky noise, or like nails on a chalkboard. And they like I don't know how accurate it was.
And I just get
They attributed it to I believe it was monkeys, like back like thousands of years ago. What I don't know what the timeline would be, but like many years ago when we were still like primal beings, monkeys would like screech, and I guess since they were like they'd attack us or whatever, like it's engraved in our brain to like pick that noise up and be fearful of it to protect ourselves. I don't know if it was exactly monkeys, but it was like an animal that screeched, and that's why we're scared of, or not scared of, but like we just kind of wince at those things.
That is the thing, because it's like the same frequency range of that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I think what is it called? It's like a Himalayan death whistle or something. I can't remember the name of it. Right?
That sounds horrific. If I hear a Himalayan death whistle, dude, I'm running.
There's a video of Joe Rogan, and he's got one. But like
he has one.
He has one, yeah. And you blow into it in a certain way, and it literally sounds like a human being screaming in agony.
Yeah. So how they rediscovered this was they were doing a dig somewhere, and they found one unearthed, and they're like, it's either a flute. They're examining this. And I can't remember. I think
someone buried that shit for a reason.
I think what they did was they took one of those compressors with air to dust it off, and it went through the holes, and it sounded like screams. And hold on, actually, this is on YouTube.
The most terrifying thing. Like I always watch the Joe Rogan podcast, always, right? And he had one on there, and it sent me into such like a lockup. I had to just stop watching it. I couldn't do it. It is the most horrific sound
I've never heard of
world.
this.
Yeah, it's super cool. And actually, I'll find a clip real quick, and I'll play it on stream so you guys can hear this.
That shit. Ooh.
Yeah,
that's like the same thing, because I can't remember what kind of people it was that used to use them, but they used to use hundreds of them, and would just like be like X amount of hundreds, 1,000 meters away from like basically people that were going to go fight, and would just blow into them all night long.
So
just keep them awake all night long.
That was like the horns that they used to put on the planes back in like World War II. Like, you know how like the typical, whenever you see like an old video, you hear like yeah, they would put horns on the planes that would like strike fear in the enemy. It's like a whole psychological thing behind it.
As like human beings, obviously our senses are our biggest
skull-shaped
kind
hollow
of
whistles were found 20 years ago.
target. So if you can freak someone out with noises that you can always hear.
Okay, so I have,
you know.
So I have one. We're gonna play it real quick. Let me pause our dark ambient music here. So they found this at an ancient Aztec dig site, and they found like the story behind all of this. But we're gonna play this for you real quick so you guys can understand what we're talking about here.
I don't like that.
that's a whistle.
That's them blowing in. So what they found was they found
Sounds like a chicken.
They found a human skull with a face, the Aztec face of death, carved into the skull, the side of it, and they found out that it was a whistle or like something that they blew into, and you hear the person breathing to blow into it, and it sounds like screams. And so what they attributed this to was that when they were going to war or when they were going to execute somebody, they'd blow into these whistles to strike the fear of their gods into them before they killed them. And it's actually like, right? The fact that this was a thing on Earth, real life, like that is horrific, dude. That is fucking the scariest thing.
And they dug it up.
They found them, dude, and now they're recreated everywhere. You can get these online. You can buy them.
Dude, they sound insane.
Yeah, fucking nuts. So I've seen some more irrational fears in here. Cheyenne's afraid of unplugging the hose from air compressors. That's That's very irrational. What the fuck? I work with a compressor every day and unplug that bitch every day. So I don't know. You couldn't work at my job. Sammy's also afraid of underneath flat cap mushrooms.
That's odd. That's irrational.
That's like a sight thing, like just the way it looks. That there's a phobia with like holes and stuff. If there's like, what's that?
I have a really irrational fear of the sea and water.
That's not irrational at all. Yeah. That's not irrational.
No, I don't mean like deep sea.
There's a Reddit for that.
I mean like I can't like if there's like, so I live like right next to the beach, right? Like right next to the beach. So like I can't even put my feet in the beach. I just can't do it. It freaks me out.
That's
I'm
not
like,
rational.
I'm gonna stand on some shit, or jellyfish is gonna like fuck me up, and I just can't do it.
That's not irrational at all, man.
I have I can relate to that a little bit. It's not like not stepping on things, but like if I go to the beach and I just look out and you don't see anything, it's just a weird, like it just makes you feel weird, I guess.
You might have vertigo by chance.
So when I first was looking into like the whole like being afraid of buildings thing, I forget what it is, but there's like a phobia of like perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
So like let's say you see something in a distance. It looks small from your perspective, but in the back of your mind you know that this thing is like massive. And like I don't know if it's that, but like I have looked into it a little bit. Like that is a thing.
Yeah.
I have a fear of the sea
for
too,
me,
by the way. The ocean. Anyway.
I can't do it.
I actually have
for me,
a fear.
I think it might be like the size ratio is kind of what freaks me out. It's like kind of mind blowing a little bit. Like when I look at a big city in the distance, like to me it looks small, but I know that it's like 200 stories high, like in reality. Yeah. And it's like,
and that's you know what, man, to think about. Like I get anxiety if I watch like deep sea dives of shipwrecks, or like like that gives me PTSD. First off, I hate the water. I can't see underneath it. Major Nuts in the chat mentioned that too. He doesn't like water. He can't swim. I can swim very well. I'm like a fish, right? But I don't like that I can't see under the water. I don't like the ocean. I don't even like to put my feet in the water. I fucking hate the ocean. I don't like the lakes. The Great Lakes are right around me. And I don't like, there's so many deep sea wrecks that people like explore and they find, and like even if I watch footage of the Titanic or like anything that like they're going around and looking at the ship, I get such an overwhelming sense of everything in this world is so much larger than me and what I have going on, and I get overwhelmed and it scares the fuck out of me. A giant ship taken in by this deep, vast, unending blue ocean, like, oh my god, dude! Like I don't know how deep the Titanic is, where it's resting is, but it's fucking deep. And like to go down, and then you're just overwhelmed by this gigantic fucking boat. I can't, dude. Like, and with fish, no, hell no, bro. You see some of the things that come out of the ocean, hell, nope. I don't play that. I like fishing, but if I ever pull up like a gargantuan ass fish, I'm cutting that line. See you later, bro. I ain't fucking with you. You can go back down to where you came from, cause I ain't fucking with you. Check out my mailbox. Yeah, PTSD, man. But PTSD is not an irrational. Like, it's a genuine thing that happens. It's like it becomes a disorder. So like, my dad has PTSD super heavy, from being a combat veteran in the Vietnam War, and like, there's nothing like he'll never be cured of it. There's nothing that you can do for it. All you can try to do is put it at ease. You know, that's just one of the things that come along with war and combat. That punk ass ocean. So we went. So when I was 16, for my 16th birthday, I went down to South Carolina with a friend and his family. They took me, which was their gift to me. It was super cool. And they took us. I didn't volunteer for this. Like, everything was great, and I was all right with the ocean at the time. This is how I knew I was afraid of the ocean. But they took us on a fishing boat, which I was cool with until the day came and we went to the boat, and the boat was huge. I got anxiety as fuck. Like, I got so much anxiety. And then, like, I thought it was going to be offshore. No. Mm-hmm. They took us out into the ocean 3 hours, 67 miles or 68 miles out into the ocean to fish this specific fish. And I remember, like, them calling everybody to the top of the boat and saying, all right, guys, like, here's these reels. We've set them up. There's buckets with bait right next to the reels. And, like, I went over to the edge of the boat and just seeing this deep, like, it's
you can't see the bottom.
You can't describe how blue the ocean is offshore until you go that far out. And, like, being 3 hours away from any type of land at all, and this big 3-story boat, like this huge, massive boat, and fishing and pulling out these huge, like, oh God, it gives me I'm getting fucking anxiety just talking about it. I can't.
We have a question. How do you react to the anxieties or the fears?
Where's that?
I got like a story.
How do you?
It depends if you're an
see.
anxious person or if you have anxiety. Different frames.
Yeah.
Like for me, having to put it into context, I've dealt with it for like half my life. So for me, it's just like, it is what it is now. So for me, it's just quite normal to be like, I mean, there obviously is a graph of that. Something really freaky. I don't know if you guys have ever had it. Have you ever had derealization?
What?
Okay, so I'll explain it. Right, you know, if you space out, right, and you just like chill in, whatever, and you kind of like snap back into where you're at. Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah.
You had that, JR?
Probably. Nothing that comes specifically to mind.
You just kind of like, oh yeah.
Like you're just daydreaming and you just come back to...
Yeah, you just daydream and you snap into it, right? So basically what derealization is it's that every single second for hours on end.
Okay, that's terrible. So
that
actually...
No. Fucking horrible. That is the scariest thing I've ever dealt with, and it used to happen to me like all the time, and it is horrible. You'd be walking down the street and you'd be like, where the fuck am I?
As a kid, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, which could be, there's all sorts of seizures that you could have. You could have a physical reaction, like a shaky seizure, or just a mental seizure. So as a kid, I was playing baseball, and I remember just being there. I was in the game, and then I don't really remember where I was. Like, I just spaced out, and I wasn't at the game anymore. And it's vivid. I don't know where I was. I wasn't at the game. I just went somewhere else. And when I came back, I just remember seeing the ball coming at me, and I couldn't catch it. I couldn't put my glove up in time. Like, I was like halfway in between being at the baseball game and being somewhere else. And the ball hit me directly in the chest. It was I think it was like a 50 or 60 mile an hour fastball. Hit me directly, and it knocked me flat on my ass. And that's how they found out that I had seizures. So where I was actually, I don't know where I was, but what I was experiencing was a brain seizure. Like, I was having a seizure, and I didn't know it. It wasn't like a violent, but like I was just gone. And they diagnosed me with this epilepsy because of that. So that and that used to happen to me a lot. I'd just space out and I'd be gone somewhere. Like, you could be having a conversation with me and I could be looking at you, and I just not be that. And like, JR, like, hey, like, where you at? And just, they physically had to like shake me. And like, even after I got hit and hit the floor, like, I really don't remember. Like, I just remember like finally coming back to the baseball game, and I had like 20 people over me, and my coach was shaking me like, "Wake up! Like, are you okay?" Like, and they rushed me to the hospital, and that's how they found. Like, it's wild. So I guess I used to have that, but I don't have that really anymore. But that was attributed to seizures. I have a deep fear of clowns. I don't know why that's a thing, man.
See, I don't get that really. I don't really get the clowns.
It
thing.
depends, I
think
guess. They are kind of freaky, I guess, if you're a kid.
It's also like a lack of humanity almost. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at a person, they have their features. That is their face. You look at a clown, it is like the most unhuman thing. That's why
it's all exaggerated. Like
yeah, that's why really weirdly done 3D rendering of people's faces freaks people out. Because it isn't real, but it is, but it's not. Your brain freaks out a little bit.
I guess clowns could be, it's kind of like the irrational fear that I talked about earlier with like the pale girl sort of thing. Like it really makes them, it's fucking stupid. But to my brain, like I had never seen anything like that before ever in any horror movie. And like the way that Asian horror, like the way they do their films is so much more realistic than American horror. So like, and now that I've studied a lot of criminal law and criminal justice, I've studied crime scenes. I've seen dead bodies that have been sitting in bathtubs for fucking 2 weeks. Like I've seen people dead after a while. And I think where that fear comes from is seeing all these crime scenes where people are dead and they look like that girl. Like that's what you start to look like. And it's very overwhelming in the moment to see like this person that was once alive is now dead in front of me and they look like a ghost. And it is horrific. It is an awful thing to see, but it's part of crime scene investigation. So I don't know. I guess that's where that fear comes from. But okay, so we are 51 minutes in, which is fine.
I say keep going.
We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. But we got to stop with the fears, and we're going to start talking about ghost stories and stuff like that because it's going to take another 50 minutes. This is going to be a very long podcast, obviously. We knew that going into this. But we're going to change the subject here, and I'm going to scroll up here and read some of the things that you guys were saying way earlier about ghosts. So before we get into that, before I read that, hold on one second. Okay. Sorry. I'm getting sick. You guys heard it, but they didn't hear it. Okay. Let's talk about the paranormal aspects of fear, and let's talk about ghosts. And if you guys want to talk about UFOs and shit like that, we could talk about that. Paranormal experiences. Now, everything varies from person to person, but I feel like I know. I can't say this I don't want to say I know to everyone because people don't believe in it. However,
I'm probably in that area. Of
I know.
Not believing.
I know you don't. I know you are.
But that's why I want to hear this.
So
like, I've heard some of it.
You've heard the story. You know, I've experienced a lot, and we talked a little bit about this in the beginning. I feel when things are wrong, and I know when things are wrong. Not always. I don't like know when something bad's going to happen, but I can feel it when stuff is in the direction that it shouldn't be going, when it's not the right energy. And I've always picked up on those things. I personally believe that ghosts are real, and I've experienced things in my life that I cannot explain. I've seen things in my life that I cannot explain. I also have video footage of things that I experienced in my first home, a home which I no longer live in now. Obviously, I live in an apartment. I will never go back to that place ever. A lot of the things that I experienced in the house, they don't make sense, and it's not right. And there are a lot of people all over the world that have these sort of stories, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'll tell you guys everything with the house and where it's at. And I actually have some things here pulled up on another monitor that I want to show you guys, and I'll let you guys dissect them and see what you think. But some of this stuff is really going to, like I said earlier, it's going to be very hard for me to talk about. I did almost lose my dog, and I do believe that it was completely ghost-related or demonic or apparition-related. I can't explain everything, but we'll talk about it. So let me read some of the stuff that these guys were saying in the chat earlier. There was a few people that were typing some stuff. Let me see. Okay. Dusty Predator, what's up, man? I'm not sure if you're still here. I work in a group home for autistic children. Some people say they attract spirits. This morning, I saw a white figure run from a dining table in the middle of this huge house to the laundry room on the other side of the house. I just grabbed my phone and tried to catch something, but I got nothing. Okay. Never really experienced any ghosts, but when I was younger, I went to the Waverly Tuberculosis Hospital in my hometown in Louisville, Kentucky. Just the side of the building was eerie, and I got sick to my stomach looking at it. We took a tour of the building, and I couldn't make it all the way through. The vibe made me uncomfortable. Okay. Facility, what's up, man? Good morning. I'm sorry, dude. I just saw you. Sometimes I get the bad feeling in my gut. They hurt so bad they give me the shits. When that happens, someone that I know of or know usually dies, not from the smell either. Interesting. Very interesting. Let me see if there's any more. Behave. Why am I behaving? What did I do?
When you blow your nose.
You have the same bedding, isn't that? Okay. One time, my grandmother and my aunt were driving in the highway through the town that my grandmother and aunt grew up in, and I swear to God, I saw an apparition of an Indian riding in a horse in the bank next to the highway. Okay. Semi-prophetic. I don't know what that. I've never heard of that term, so I don't know what that means.
Oh, I know what that means.
Okay. What does that mean? You want to explain that?
So basically.
Okay. So
kind of like deja vu.
It's like ESP. Okay. So that's a huge thing too. So I experienced this my whole life. I've experienced this. I have dreams, and then those things happen, and I remember them happening before. Like I can't explain it to you. Like you just have to trust me on this sort of thing.
Should we save it for the dreams episode?
Yeah, we could. We'll talk.
Cut it
we'll
off,
talk.
but...
No, you're right. We'll talk about that. But that is a real thing.
I got a lot of stories for dreams.
Yeah, that is a real thing. 100%, Sammy. 100%. ESP or like whatever. Yes, I have them too. Okay, so let's get all. We'll save that for. We'll do that next week. We'll do dreams next week.
Okay.
So my ex-girlfriend Jamie, her mother bought a apartment in a very old part of Ohio, and I helped her move in, and everything was kosher, everything was fine, we were gravy, right? And time had gone by. Well, her mother became so close to me, like she was super cool with me, she loved me, that I'd go over there all the time and watch the cat and just house sit and just make sure everything was all right. So it's super, super old, like 200 years old. Like everything was so old there, right? And I very, very, very much remember sitting in the apartment at like 8 or 9 p.m. I had all the lights, all the power off, everything. Oh God, I had everything off. It's making my hair stand up. And I remember sitting there. I was connected to my Xbox 360, which I had brought over. I was waiting for her mom to get off of work so she could come home and I could leave. And I'm sitting there playing, and I hear like creaking of the steps, which it's an old apartment. Old wood, and I'm thinking to myself, it's nothing, right? But I'm not really paying attention to it. I've got a headset just like this on, and I'm sitting there, and I swear, up and down, like everything that I remember, out of my peripheral vision. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to say this again. 9 times out of 10, if you think you saw something, you probably did.
I fucking love him. He's
you
great.
Probably did. So out of my peripheral vision, and this is always something that you should always pay attention to when you see things, you always, like, I always see things in my left and right. I'm always looking. But I swear, out of the corner of my eye, there was a very, very tall man, about 6 to 7 feet tall. Something like, he was 6 something to 7 feet tall, with a top hat.
Dude from, what is it, Resident Evil?
Yeah, like,
you know
huge.
About?
Like, not thick.
Giant guy?
Skinny. Very skinny. Like, anorexic skinny. With an old school jacket on, and a top hat, and very pale with a big gray beard. And like, I'm sitting there like playing the game, and I just remember like seeing it out of the corner of my eye, and like I didn't want to look, but this, whatever this was approaching me. And like, I just remember like slowly like looking, and like as I looked, he's like right here, but
he's like, you smell good.
As I'm turning, like, he's already disappearing from my view, but he's close. Not his face, but his body was right, like, close to my face. And I remember like jumping back, and I'm like, okay. And not long after that, 5 minutes after that, her mother walks in, and I'm gone. I'm like, I gotta go. I tell her what happened, and she's like, I've actually seen that before too. And I'm like, okay. So that would have been nice to know. That would have been nice to know before I was apartment sitting. But the apartment was like super old in itself. The building was, like I said, like between 100 and 200 years old, super old. And that didn't sit right with me. So I dipped out. That was like one of the earliest things that I can remember. And again, it could have been just me, like a dark apartment, like, you know, something that I just made up in my mind. I feel like, I don't know, like I don't remember what game I was playing. It wasn't a horror game. I think I was playing like Call of Duty or something. Yeah. But stuff like that, it happens all the time. And there are more sinister things out there that happen, and stories that are like, you can watch TV shows a lot. I think some of the stuff on TV is a little bit exaggerated.
See, that's what makes me not believe in it. Is like, you watch what is that? Ghost Hunters?
Yeah.
Is that the one with the Zach guy with the tattoos? Like, he looks like he's in a band.
They have like the video camera pointed down like this long like alleyway, and I don't know, and like all of a sudden like you'll see like something move. But you don't know how much of that is exaggerated.
Well, I mean, think about it this way, right? Think about it this way. If you are an empathic person, you pick up on things, right? Your camera doesn't have emotions. A camera can't pick that up. A camera doesn't view things in the way.
Well, I think what their
you
pitch is that it's like infrared, or like things.
Yeah, but this is my point. Is realistically, in my mind at least, if it was like a actual ghost hunters video, like, and it was just what it is, you couldn't make a TV show with planned series and planned episodes for that without some kind of dramatization or adding things to make it add up, because you can't make that happen. Like, sometimes you might just get a feeling that freaks you out. It happened to me. Obviously British history is a little bit fucked up. So I went on a school trip when I was younger to the house of Henry VIII. Now, for those who don't know, which I'm assuming you all do, Henry VIII is the old British king who basically beheaded a bunch of people. His wives, that is. And we went to his house, which was really, really, really weird. But anyway, so there was this hallway. And this is like medieval, not medieval. What's the Victorian, like pre-Victorian? Is it the Tudor period? I think. Somewhere around there, like old, 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And you can just tell because everything's really Tudor. So everything's really like bleak and dark and feels really like. Ugh. Anyway, there's just like and this is like a royal household, right? Like throwback. So there's this really long hallway with a bunch of like old oil paintings, right? And like windows and curtains and shit. And our tour guide, bear in mind, we're all like 13, right? So we're all like, oh, I bet there's going to be some ghosts. This tour guide was like, you know, some people say that when you walk here, you can feel his wife run past you and scream. At this point, we're all like, yeah, whatever. Shit, you not. Gust of wind like someone ran past us and we all bolted. We were like, nope, I'm out. Fuck this. I'm out. And I'm not usually someone who picks up on that kind of stuff. I'm just not, really. I'm not that susceptible to it. But no, dude, it was weird. That entire place. And the weirdest part of it is like her bedroom, like in that building, was the one that like burnt down. Like not too long prior and shit. And since then, a bunch of weird stuff had been happening. But it was like something about that era, like between the Tudor era and the Victorian era around that time. That seems to be where like a lot of the weird like ghosty stuff happens. Is that kind of period, because I feel like there's still a lot of because I mean a lot of people say that like spirits and stuff are tied to objects or places or buildings, and there's still a lot of that stuff around like now.
So I wish I'm sorry. I wish people would pay attention more to energy, because whatever aura or like whatever you're putting out into the world stays attached to wherever you are. Like if you have a lot of positive memories and you leave that place with a lot of positive memories, that is going to be that feeling of good is going to be attached to wherever that place is. So the Japanese believe that when something happens somewhere so traumatic, so either evil or whatever you want to call it, or good, it attaches itself to that place and it stays there forever. But it's more so if it's something evil or like a murder or something that happens, the feeling of what the person is experiencing when they've taken a life and that feeling of fear and I'm going to die from the person that's being killed, it stays there.
Stays there, yeah.
And that attracts outside energies to that place that have also either experienced something similar or have no real sense of I can move on. And again, this is something that either you believe it or you don't. But I personally believe that ghosts and apparitions and entities and malevolent entities and demons, all of these things are real. And a lot of people dismiss them because we have no real evidence that these things are real. But it's just one of those feelings that you get.
That's what it is for me. Is like I'm a very like I need something like evidence to be shown to me and be like this is what we have to back it up.
Okay.
And like with the technology that we have today, like I haven't looked into it that much, so there might be something like this out there, or like a group, but you'd think with the technology that we'd have today that people would be pursuing this like heavily.
Well,
like trying
it
to
is
find...
it is pursued heavily. It's just a matter of what you believe.
The thing is, you've got to think like for UFOs are a prime example, right? Like there's like official evidence that they exist, like government records that they exist, because obviously after X amount of times, government records need to be published, made public, blah blah blah. Anyway, so there's like actual records that are saying that like fighter pilots have seen them and have chased them and all this stuff, and they're just a whole new level of blah 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 blah. But then you also
I believe
get
in
some
UFOs
people...
before.
Yeah, but
like,
you also get some people
stuff.
who some of the stories they come out with just don't add up, right? But they're doing it for like the rush of it, to be able to say, oh yeah, I was kidnapped by some aliens, and then what they say just makes no fucking sense, and then discredits everything else.
So
someone view it as this thing, when in reality, if you've ever experienced it, it's completely different, if that makes sense. And it's the same with ghost stories. Is like, for example, JR, what you said, that clearly has a psychological effect on you, and you can see that.
Oh, it does.
If someone was like, oh yeah, so I saw a ghost, and it's obviously not that big of a deal. If you've ever had that kind of experience on that like other realm, like in the paranormal area, it will affect you in a very deep-rooted emotional way. Whereas if you just talking out your ass, it's not going to.
Not gonna.
So,
no.
So if someone was saying it to me that didn't have your reaction, I'd be like, well, likelihood is he probably didn't. But if you can see it's genuinely like disturbing someone, it's obviously like whether it happened or didn't happen, what that person thought they have seen has definitely affected them in that way.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it, which is why when people pursue it, people just say it's fake, because there are so many people who say things happen and they don't really happen, and that discredits the rest of it, because the human mind, it's easier to believe something that's unbelievable. It's easier to disbelieve something that's unbelievable than it is to try and reason with it, which is why when you see something you probably have, but your brain's like, nah, that didn't make any sense, I'm just going to ignore that.
Dismiss it. That's exactly what I mean earlier, because like for default, he's a perfect example. He's not seen or experienced anything that
ever.
You may have, but you might have dismissed it because you just don't believe. So if you put yourself in a sense, like a sensory mode where you just don't believe in this stuff, and that's how you live your life, like when you actually see things that don't make sense, you're not gonna give a shit.
I gotta agree with that.
So you mentioned it, and by the way, if you've never seen Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, that's definitely something that I recommend you watching. It is by far one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. It's a horror movie, but it's supposed to be based on real things that have happened. There's actually videotape footage supposed to be real. I don't know if it's real. I don't know. It's been credited that it is
these
real.
Days with like Photoshop and like
no.
these
So
softwares,
well,
you don't know.
I don't know, but it's been credited that it's real,
Yeah.
that this Dr. Abigail Tyler that's been renamed in this movie is real, is a real person. They show her on film, and she is not, like, she's not doing good. She's experienced this thing with aliens, and they show this footage, and it's just unexplainable. And I don't know if the footage is real, but the images that they show in that movie have stuck with me ever since I've seen it, and it is probably one of the hardest movies to watch.
Yeah.
Now,
there are a lot of people who are deeply affected by that.
now that you're talking about evidence, let me go into my story of the house, and I'll show you guys what I have. I have stuff here pulled up from my cell phone. What I experienced 2 years ago in that house, I simply cannot explain. So for those of you that have not heard this story before, this is something that I went through, and it was super hard for me, and it still is. It's kind of sits with me. I don't really dwell on it. You know, it's been a couple years. I don't have to even go over near that house anymore, and my dog is alive and well, which is fantastic. Yes, it is with Mila Jovovich. Saying, Daddy, good morning. Ariana, how are you? I don't think I'd want to watch that shit. I'm a big wimp. I wouldn't then, because that movie was terrifying. That was one of the only movies that ever scared me. That one and the Grudge ones. Hold on, let me read some of these comments. Go ghost hunting. It's like fishing. Sometimes you get a few bites, sometimes you don't. I would not recommend ghost hunting, actually. I've seen things where amateur ghost hunters would go places to go hunt ghosts and think it's a joke, and entities would attach themselves to them. I very, very much believe in possession, demonic possession. I believe demons are real, and I've seen things on the internet that I don't want to watch again, that I won't watch again, of supposedly real possessions, and I've seen faces of people that are supposed to be possessed, and I completely believe in that. I don't. We're not gonna get into that because that's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's called the fourth kind. Okay, so let's get into the story. So a couple years ago, I was offered to move into a location for a very low price for rent, and I was trying to go full-time streaming. This is right around when I went full-time streaming. And it was huge for me. Like, here's an opportunity to move into this beautiful 3-story house, a 4-bedroom house, for around $500 a month, everything covered. Trash, electric, basically. All I had to do was pay for my internet and keep it clean. Who's not going to jump at that, right? So I jumped at it. I jumped on that house, I moved in, and everything was okay at first. But the longer I was there, the longer I started to notice that things were not okay. Things were not right. Things didn't make sense. So when I was moving things out of the bedrooms, it's a 3-story house. At the top floor, the bedrooms, there was 4 bedrooms on the left-hand side and a bathroom when you go up the stairs. So I moved in, and I'm moving all the old previous owners' belongings out of the house. An older couple had lived there for 20, 30 years. I think it might have been longer than that. But regardless, I had no idea the history of that family. I had no idea what had happened in that house, who lived there. I had no idea. I didn't find out until later, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I'm moving boxes down to the basement. Old family photos, Christmas ornaments, things like that. And when I was cleaning those closets out in the bedrooms, I found an old shotgun. And the people that used to live there were very, very religious. So there's crosses all over the house. There's pictures of Jesus all over the house, palm trees, or like not palm trees, but palm leaves, I'm sorry, from like Jerusalem and stuff. And I just remember in one of the bedrooms, there was a cross on the wall. And I took this shotgun and I physically moved this shotgun far away from that door entrance. And I went down to the bottom floor, the basement, which the lights didn't work. It was super dark, but there was windows down there. Tons of stuff, old pictures, very, very spooky basement, like mannequins, like just scary. And I was taking stuff down there, and I like my natural reaction of that basement is to get the fuck out. So I was just taking boxes, putting them down there and going. Well, I went down there, I put the boxes down, and the moment I put that box down, I heard a loud bang. Like upstairs. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm moving stuff around. The house is old. Maybe something probably just fell. Right? Well, I went upstairs. And the previously far away from the entrance shotgun. And this is like the earliest, like, whatever. Anyway, was now into the doorway, down the hall. I don't know how. With the barrel facing towards the wall, and the cross was on the floor. That was previously not on the floor. It was on the ceiling. So, like, my mind's racing, and I'm very, like, I'm superstitious, and I'm like, okay, like, I don't understand why that happened, but it could have been just me moving. Like, whatever. I dismissed that completely, but I didn't forget it. It was in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, so I picked this shotgun up, and I put it back, and I put the cross back on the wall, and no issue at that point, right? So time goes on. I'm completely moved in. I've moved all the previous owners' belongings to the basement, and I don't really go down there. So I bring my sister over for the first time to this house, and she brings her dog Una with her, and she comes in the house. And the first thing that she says to me is that the house is very cold. Very. She's like, this house is really cold, and I don't know why. And I'm like, dismissing it. I'm like, oh, well, the AC is probably on. It's summer when I'm moving in. I'm like, oh, I probably have the AC on blast. I'll turn it down a little bit. So her dog, and I didn't notice this at the time, but thinking about it now, like, I noticed it, but I didn't say anything about it. Her dog, the first thing her dog does is go downstairs to where the basement is. She comes in, she goes straight downstairs. And my sister and I are talking, and the dog comes running up. She's not really a barker, this dog. She's been previously abused. We saved her. She comes running up, and she's kind of like, like, and her hair's standing up. Mm-hmm. And my sister and I are like, oh, what's wrong? Like, you know, not thinking anything of it at all. Well, my sister's looking around the house, and she goes upstairs, she comes down, and she just looks down in the basement. And my sister's kind of the same way I am with, like, an empath. She feels things. So she looks downstairs, and immediately, like, I see her go like this. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, JR, I don't know what it is, but something about downstairs is not right. It doesn't feel right. And I'm like, dismissing this. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I look downstairs, and I'm not feeling what she's feeling. I'm like, okay, so what? It's an old house. It's creepy. Like, yeah. She's like, I don't know, but I'm gonna leave. My sister was so uncomfortable in that moment, she left. Took her dog with her. Dog left the house with her hair standing up, and she never moved when she came back upstairs from that spot. So, time goes on, and the longer I'm in the house, I'm starting to pick up on things now. Like, I can't get out of my head that my sister said something was wrong with downstairs. And I don't go down there that often. I really just utilize the main room, the kitchen, and then the upstairs bedrooms. Hold on, I gotta time out an idiot here. I'll give you 10 minutes. Think about what you're saying before you come in here again with some stupid shit, or you're banned. Don't fuck with me, I'll end you. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So Zoe is now in the house with me, and she starts to go downstairs more. And I'd randomly catch her in the darkness of this specific area. So the garage connected to the house, and the door that comes right in from the garage, there's a closet to the left, a bathroom to the right, and down the hall is the door to the basement, which goes down to another floor. Good morning, Scum. Thank you for joining. Cram, what's up, dude? And I kept catching Zoe down there. So the inside of the closet, it's weird because the house is old. When you walk in from the garage, there's a door there. And when you open the closet, you can see on the other side of the closet, there's another door for inside the house. But you have to walk around to get it open. Well, as I'm cleaning the entire house, I'm moving everything down to the basement. I go around to the other side, and that closet has 2 broken handles. You can't open it. It doesn't work. You just can't, like, it's flat. Like, I can't physically open it, excuse me. So I'm thinking nothing of it. I'm like, all right. I'm looking in the closet. There's some old pictures in there, old family belongings, old jackets from, who knows, like 50 years ago. Really old, dusty. Everything's dusty in there. And I kept catching Zoe going down to that closet. And I kept catching her outside the doors. The door's still shut. She'd stay on that side always. And I wish I had recorded it now. Because it it just makes my hair stand up thinking about it.
Mm.
But there was one night, and you guys know, oh God, making me, there's one night,
Get the heebie-jeebies.
yeah, because it scares the hell out of me. My dog, you guys know my dog, she's always close to me. I don't know where she is now, but when I sleep, she's always with me.
Hey, man.
She's always next to me. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know what time. It was between 2 and 3 a.m., whatever it was. And she's not next to me. But I can hear her down in the basement barking. So immediately my red flags are going off. Like, something is wrong. My dog does not bark unless there's something there that she does not like, or a person's there that she does not like, or she doesn't know. So I grab my gun. And I go down with my flashlight, and I'm looking around immediately. I'm looking to, because I don't, like, this house where it is in a nicer neighborhood, but it's surrounded by ghetto. So, like, I'm thinking I have a home invasion here about to happen. And I go down there, and I find her in the pitch black darkness. No light. And that closet door with no handles is open. And her hackles are standing up on her spine all the way up, as high as they can go. And she is fixated on this door. And it's open, which is my biggest concern. So immediately, I'm high alert because, first off, there's no reason for that closet door to be open. And I'm still thinking home invasion at this point. So I'm like, and again, you know my dog. I call. She comes. She listens to everything that I say. And I just remember saying, Zoe, come here. Zoe. And she's just fixated on this door. I cannot get her to get off this door. She's barking at it, her hair standing straight up. Something is wrong. So, me, like, I'm a dog dad. Like, I don't play that. You're going to listen to what I'm saying to you, right? Completely unlike her. I grab her butt, like, to get her to come to me. I'm like, Zoe, with my one hand. And my dog turned around and fucking tried to bite me. Zoe doesn't do that. And, like, once she realized it was me, like, her hair's still standing up the whole time. She turned around, fucking came up to me, put her ears back, and she's crying. But the whole time, like, because she feels bad, she just did this to me. But she's looking over at that door, and she just won't stop. And I'll show you exactly. I have a video of this. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here, what she does. I cannot get that image out of my head. 2 or 3 in the morning, she's barking at this closet, and I don't know why. So I took her upstairs immediately, and I closed the door to my bedroom and locked it, and we went to bed. That kept happening every other night, or every night. She kept going down into the middle of the night if I'd leave that door open and be barking at that closet in the middle of the night, every night. That slowly transpired further and further into the house. So, eventually it changed from that closet door, and it went over to the basement. I'd catch her in the hallway, in the pitch blackness, barking at the basement door. And I could never attribute to why, right? So now, after weeks of this happening, I'm starting to really understand that something is not okay here, and I feel it now. Like, I didn't feel it at first, and for you guys, like, I know I say it a lot, like, I feel things, like, I can't explain why I didn't feel it at first. Maybe it was because Zoe noticed it, and that's why I started to feel it. That it wasn't a threat to me until it became a threat to Zoe. So then I started to pick up on it. Oh God. And let me show you. I'll show you. And actually, let me show you first video here. So this is a recording from the living room at the time. All right. So you guys are going to have to open this on stream. So I'm talking to my dog like I always do here in this video. And I didn't notice this at first. This is a video that I took on my phone. But if I pause this down, you already know. You can see that Zoe's eyes are fixated on something. She's not looking at me. So we're going to play this real quick. Let me turn this music off so you can hear exactly what's happening here. And you tell me if you guys see what I noticed. What my friend noticed, actually. Jojo? Oh my God. Why are you such a sweet, sweet angel? Look at you.
You want this? You want this, don't you?
Oh my God, sweet angel. Oh. Okay. Bingo. Sammy caught it. Sammy caught. That's the first thing. Okay. So she's fixated to my right immediately. Okay. So you see it past the screen. I never fucking noticed this at
Wow,
first.
that's weird.
But her eyes shift over from right to left.
Yeah.
As soon as that passes the screen. Now, you could say, and I could say, and I could completely see that. You could say that was just a dust or something that passed the camera that I caught, right? And that's absolutely believable, right? So that's whatever. That's circumstantial evidence, we'll say. But it's something that I didn't notice that somebody else noticed, right? So let me pull up another one here. So we talked about the barking between 2 and 3 a.m. And it was every night, guys, every night that we would experience this. And it became so apparent to me that something was wrong at this point that it was every night. Loud bangs in the middle of the night, things not where I left them, windows open, doors open that weren't supposed to be open because I close everything. I lock down at night so that I can protect myself in the event that someone breaks in. Everything's locked. Shades being open, things falling, you name it. Paranormal activity to the max, like pans falling, dishes breaking, all of those things were happening. So let me pull up this video here of the barking. Let me see if I can get it full screen here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Okay. So one of the first things that we did, you can hear my dog growl, and it's making my hair stand up because I'm reliving this. One of the first things that my mother did, my mother's super religious, is she came in and she blessed every single doorway. She blessed my house. She did it with my apartment. She blessed every single doorway. So this is at, I believe it's like 3:20 something in the morning. I'm sleeping for work, and this is a nightly occurrence, and this is why I start to record it. I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. And this is Zoe every single night. So let's just watch this real quick.
The way she looked back at you.
So dogs are very perceptive. Animals are very perceptive. Children are very perceptive of their surroundings. There's a cross at that door, and that door is blessed. Whatever was in that house, and I believe is still in that house, was at my door that night. And she was not okay. And the reason why I was holding her collar was because I was so afraid that something was
after it?
that she was going to go after that door, and I was going to hear something back. And I'm still deathly afraid of going back to that house every time I think about the things that happened. So shortly after that night, this is when shit really took a turn. I remember going to work and greeting my dog in the morning, and everything was fine. No problem. Well, I came home from work that day, and immediately I was greeted with something like the energy that I keep talking about. It was a wall, and I walked right through it when I walked into that door, and I felt like something was wrong immediately. And the first thing that Zoe does is she greets me, she comes to me, she comes wagging, she jumps all over me. Zoe didn't come to me that day.
You could take a minute if you need.
So give me a second.
Yeah, you
Collecting
take your time.
myself. So I went looking for my dog. Couldn't find her. When you know something is wrong, like I said, I felt that energy. I knew something was wrong when I walked in the house. She did not greet me. I had to go and find her. When I found her, she wasn't walking. She was more she's more like dragging her legs. And I've never seen her more scared in my life. Her back was protruded up. I could see her spine, like her bones, poking like almost through her skin. And her legs weren't right. She was dragging her legs when I found her, and to me, like, the dog is my kid. So I absolutely lost it. I lost it. I did. I picked her up and I rushed her to the vet. And I got her there. And we did all the testing. We did everything that we need to do for her. And the initial conclusion after all the testing that we did the x-rays, we did everything, was that there's no sign of trauma. There's no genetic disorder. She's never had an issue in her entire life. There's no bruising, no swelling. Just her back was just not right for no reason. Doctor couldn't explain it. She had no explanation for me as the owner of this dog what happened. So, one of the hardest 2-3 weeks of my life, I had to leave her there. Well, I left her the next visit, but when we left the house and I got her there, we were there for a couple of hours, she started to get a little bit better. She was able to walk. She wasn't dragging her toes as much. And we were able to walk out of that hospital together, me and her. Like, her feet were still kind of limp, but we were able to get out. Well, I should have left her there that night, and I did not. I brought her back to the house with me. And sure as shit, just like every night before that, Zoe's alert at the door. Except this time she can't move. She's on the bed with me. I had to pick her up and put her on there. She couldn't jump up there. She's alert. She cannot move. But she's on the door. Just like every night. And, you know, at this point, like, I'm sleepless because first off, I'm worried about my dog. I'm up all night, and I'm thinking, my mind's racing about this. I'm thinking about this. Well, the next day, I left her there, and I regret it every day. I left her there. I shouldn't have left her there.
We could skip this if you want.
Yeah, if it's too intense, then we can.
I shouldn't have left her there. No, it's fine. But I did. I left her there. And I came home, and she couldn't walk. Got worse. So I rushed her to the hospital. And the prognosis was bad. It was really bad. It was bad. It was really bad. Doctor said her spine was, the muscles and the nerves and everything around her spine was swollen. And it wasn't like that before. Everything was inflamed, and we needed to take care of this immediately, or she's not gonna make it. Like, you're either gonna have to get a wheelchair for her, or you're gonna have to put her down. And it's very expensive. Everything that we were doing was very, very expensive. And we talked about this on stream, and I threw a donation goal up. And we did a GoFundMe, and thank God for the generosity of strangers. I was able to take care of all of her expenses. But moving back into the direction of the story, I left her in the hospital, and she stayed there for the next week or two. And I started to do some research, and I started to talk to people. And one of the things that a lot of people say, which this is why I mentioned it earlier, is that energies, demonic or evil spirits will connect themselves to children and animals because those are the ones that are most perceptive of them being there, and they don't want to be noticed. They want to feed off your good, healthy energy, and if they're bad, and take that over and destroy you one day at a time. So after reading this and like talking with somebody about it, that the possibility is very strong that whatever spirit is in your house, my dog knows it's there. It's been alerting me to its presence, and it does not like that. And it took a perfectly healthy dog, and I truly believe this, it took a perfectly healthy dog and tried to kill it because it didn't like that it was alerting me to its presence. Well, I came home after dealing with all of this and reading up on this, and I remember walking into that door and screaming at the top of my lungs, bawling my eyes out, to take me, to come after me. Like, I'm, and that was one of the dumbest things I ever did in my life. But I was so upset that my dog had been attacked. I never saw what happened, but I believe very, very strongly that whatever is in that house went after my dog. And I came in and I was screaming and I was yelling, like, come after me, I fucking dare you. You won't hurt me. And nothing happened. House stayed silent.
Hey man, you're great.
And that was a very, very, very long night. Very long night. I turned off everything. And I closed the door and I locked it just like I did, but Zoe wasn't there. And I actually kind of like started to fall asleep. Well, that didn't last long. TV that was previously off had turned itself on, and I heard it, and it was very loud. And it's one of those things like, you know when someone's sitting in the room and they turn on the TV and then they turn the volume up and you can hear that, but you know someone's there? Well, my TV had turned on and got progressively louder immediately, and I didn't turn it on. And there's no timer set on it. I still have that TV. It's in the other room. It doesn't do that. And I remember going downstairs, waking up in the middle of the night, about 3 something, whatever. And that TV was on, and it was very loud. It was like 50 something volume. Like the neighbors could hear that TV if they wanted to. I unplugged that fucking thing, and I ran straight upstairs. And I closed the door behind me. And the whole night, I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I was up.
I would have been sleeping in my car.
I was hearing things all night. Loud creaks, bangs. TV had turned on, but it was off. I unplugged it. The very next day, I called off work. I didn't go to work. I called my mother in. And I'm like, hey, we need to get some prayers from the deacon or the priest of the church that you go to, please. I want to tell them what's going on. If you know anything about exorcism or possession or any of that stuff, you know that priests are not allowed to do basically anything. All that they can do is try to bless a house, But even then, that's a struggle or a process. So like I couldn't physically get like anybody involved. I'd have to get the Diocese of Cleveland involved, and they'd have to go to whatever higher up they need to go to, and then that would go directly to the Vatican if I wanted to, like, we're talking about like big stuff. Like if I really wanted to get like the house fucking like super cleansed, I couldn't do any of that. Like they needed evidence. Subtle clues here and there that I was catching on to, and actually I think I have a picture. I'm not sure if I have more videos and photos of what things that were happening, and I probably do. So I remember coming home, and when I do my dishes, and you guys can take a look at the screen here. When I do my dishes, I lay out a clean towel, and I put them on there to dry. Well, just like every other day, I had done that with a towel, and I had planned to do the dishes that day. I hadn't done them yet, but I laid out a clean towel, and I went to work. Well, when I came home, I found this on my counter. I took a picture of it. And what you're seeing definitely resembles a handprint in the center of this towel. Could be nothing. Could be something that I did on accident, maybe. It could have been. There's so many different explanations. But to me, this looks like a palm, a thumb here, and 4 fingers. It looks like a handprint. But I found this on the cloth, and immediate, like, just, this is not okay. Like, something is wrong. This is demonic. Whatever it is not okay. And it didn't personally affect me, but I never felt right. I never felt good.
Yeah.
And that energy in that house was so negative and so, like, just not okay. And by the time I had heard it, a week almost had gone by the time I had heard something about the prayers. Well, finally, my mother had gotten some prayers. She told the deacon what was going on in my house, and he gave her a blessed Bible and some candles and some holy water and specific prayers that he wanted her to say when we came in the house. So my mother and I and my dad got in a circle in the living room, and we read these prayers, and we blessed the house, and we went through and we did everything that we could. And for a while after that happened, these things, they stopped happening.
Yeah.
I stopped getting the feeling in the morning or in the middle of the night. I was able to sleep at night. I stopped hearing loud bangs. All of these things. And things started to feel normal for a while. Well, during all of this time, I'm still going back and forth with my dog, we're doing therapy. She's still at the hospital. We're doing therapy every day. Spinal therapy, walking therapy with my dog, everything. While all of this is happening, I'm telling the owner of the house what's happening.
Mhm.
And he finally decides to tell me that somebody died in the house. And I had no idea. Well, the husband that lived there, I found out because he told me, that lived there with the grandmother, which is why she moved out. She had to move to a home because she had no one to take care of her. He didn't like strangers. He didn't like people in the house that he didn't know. And he didn't like animals. So, this man that was 70, 80 years old, that didn't like people, didn't like strangers, didn't like animals, lived in this house, died in this house after 30, 40 years, and I had moved all of his belongings to the basement. I had been living in his house, using his kitchen, using his bedroom, where he used to sleep, everything. And when he told me that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And
You think the dude just wanted you out?
I think he wanted me out.
Like he wanted.
I think he wanted me out of his house.
Just get you out.
Yeah, I think he was willing and able to do anything to get me out of that house. So, after I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks, finally, Zoe was able to walk again, which was incredible. I brought her.
Still at the house at this point?
I was still at the house, and nothing had happened for weeks. Well, I brought her back home because I felt okay. I felt at peace. Like everything was good. I had no issues. I still never went down to the basement or downstairs because I didn't want to. I'd go to the basement if I needed to do my laundry because that's where the washer and dryer were. But I'd do it in the middle of the day, and I'd make sure everything was lit up, and I'd have all the windows open so there was natural light coming in. But every time I went down there, I never felt okay.
Yeah.
The hair on my arms would stand up, and I just feel very cold, and something was wrong. Well, I brought her home, and the night that I brought her home, like clockwork, barking at the door. Something is wrong. I didn't feel it anymore, but Zoe could feel it anymore. And maybe I was numb to it. Maybe I was blocking it out. Maybe I didn't want to think about it anymore. But Zoe was locked onto it again. At this point, she's wearing this special vest that she had to wear. I have a picture of it here to protect her spine. She's wearing this every day. And what it does is it compresses her spine and keeps her straight,
Like,
no matter.
keeps her in form, kind of.
Yes, so that her back doesn't get injured anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've got like this not perfectly healthy dog, but I've got a healthy dog again, and she's on this door again. Not long after that, I told the owner again what's going on. Like, this is still happening, and he doesn't believe in any of that stuff. So I don't know what to tell you. Well, I moved out of that house, and Zoe has been completely fine ever since I left that house. And I swear up and down, whether you believe or you don't believe is truly up to you. Each person is different. But I swear to you, in every inch of my being, what happened in that house was real. And it still affects me to this day. I talk about it, makes my hair stand up.
Does anyone live there now?
No. House is empty. House has remained empty since I left. It happened. I believe it's real. I would never wish what happened to me on anyone else. It didn't come after me physically, that I know of, but it went after what it knew was going to affect me the most. And that is evil. Pure evil. In whatever form you want to call it. Because if you go after not somebody but what they care about most, you're killing them. And that was killing me. So again, you can take everything I want and shove it up your ass and say it doesn't exist and shit it out and say that it didn't happen. But it happened. It happened, and it's very real.
That's the thing. A lot of people only view evidence as something that happens within the kind of physical spectrum. Like, you know, for example, shit being thrown around, stuff breaking, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But a lot of this stuff kind of happens on an emotional level, you know? Because there are people who have said that physical things have happened to them, and might be true, might not be true. It depends on person to person. Because some people talk out their ass for days, and other people genuinely have really kind of horrific experiences with it. But if something can't affect you in the physical kind of level, they will on an emotional level. Because that is then like an attainable thing to do. Does that make sense? You know, if for example, like I'm very much like you, like I lock shit down. So I know if something's not quite right. Whereas that doesn't mean a ghost is going to come up and punch me in the face, but it doesn't mean it's not going to fuck with me. Do you know what I mean? Very much in the same light with you. Because like you say, dogs and kids are very, very susceptible to stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had a
No, you're good.
A question in chat. What are your thoughts on this after not having any experiences? I knew a little bit about the story, not the whole entire story. It's still like, I don't want to say I'm not convinced. Like, I try to take everything with an open mind. So like, I don't want to deny that this happened. Like, I believe JR. But it's one of those things where like, I think you really have to experience something, like, for yourself to really believe it. Like, truly believe it. Like, there's a big difference between like, yeah, that might be possible, or like, yes, that's definitely true. And I guess since I haven't had an experience like that, I can't like. You can't just tell your mind like, okay, yeah, that's definitely true. Like something has to be cemented in your brain to like
No, it's one of those things that you will
fully
only
grasp
reason
it.
with it if you experience it. Like you
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
It's such an emotional thing that you can't explain it to someone and them get it unless they've had experiences like that or seen how it's affected someone. Also, by the way, Jared, thanks for sharing that. I understand that was really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
That was very hard for me.
That was probably
Yeah.
I
It
was
was
gonna
very
say that
hard
was
for me to
probably
talk
super
about.
difficult.
And I can't. I don't know where the emotion comes from. Like I can mention it and talk about it here and there, and it doesn't affect me. But
Yeah.
when like, we get into the full story, every time it gets me because I just can't get that image of my dog out of my head.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
apologize
remember
for
that
getting
time.
choked up, but you know,
No, you're fine, mate. You're fine, honestly.
but I again, and obviously everybody has their own experiences, and I agree with you to a point. Like to me, I'm more open to things being more real than not real because I'm just I don't have a reason to disbelieve. But I get that.
I think that's where I'm at now is like
Yeah.
like I don't have a reason to disbelieve, but I need the evidence to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, and you could watch TV shows and stuff all day, but a lot of that stuff is fabricated for
yeah.
entertainment purposes. It's not something that I wish for you, knowing you as
No.
as my friend. I don't want you to have to experience something
I
that
wouldn't
I've
want that
experienced.
on the I don't want something like the scale you had. If I could just have someone like I don't know.
One of these days, all right, and I'm not
I don't think you
wishing
get to
this
pick
on
and
you.
choose these scenarios.
I'm not wishing this on you, but one of these days, you're gonna take a photo of something, and something is gonna catch your eye that doesn't
I've
fit or
thought
belong,
about that. Yeah.
and you're gonna think of this and be like, you're gonna start to question things, and go back and take another photo of that thing again, or whatever it is, and something is not gonna quite be right, and it's probably not what you think it is. It's very real, and I know you haven't seen it yourself, but it does happen. And these things manifest themselves in odd ways all the time.
Yeah.
Just be more perceptive.
Also, headspaces can really differ the effect that can have, like drastically. If you're in like a pretty good headspace and you're feeling pretty good, then likelihood is it's probably not going to happen because that's a very hard thing to access. But if you're in a really like kind of like stressed out,
vulnerable.
Yeah, if you're in like a vulnerable,
Yeah.
I mean, it happens to me like. Nothing on that level at all, but just like little things. Like when I was younger, I used to be like really stressed out. I used to be freaked out in the dark for no reason. Never been that way ever. Like I can only sleep if it's pitch black. I'm just one of those weirdos.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some nights where I'm like really stressed out. I'm like, I'm just gonna leave the light on, just for the sake of it. Like I have like a lamp here. But yeah, your headspace is a massive factor when it comes to things like that happening, because like if you're in a healthy headspace and you're feeling good, your brain, anything negative that just doesn't make sense, your brain won't prioritize as important. But if you're in like a very vulnerable headspace, that will then your brain classes that as like a threat almost, and will just draw so much attention to it.
I think that relates back to like the anxiety fear stuff too, because you could be like right now I could be like, all right, like cities and that sort of thing, like nothing's gonna happen if I go to a city. I'm just gonna walk around and like that's it. But once I'm in that scenario and like things are amplified and I'm kind of in like a vulnerable situation where it's like you're so flooded that you're not thinking clearly, like
that's when that stuff appears out. I actually put a picture in the Discord. Actually, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that is a thing on the Brighton seafront called the British Airways i360. Now, if you zoom into that photo, you can see the size of a person next to it. So that thing's 163 meters tall, I think. The thing's huge, and that donut on it, that is a.
Can you like go in that?
It's a glass donut where the building at the bottom, it goes down into that, and you can go into it, and it takes you all the way up to the top, right? Now, I'm the same as you. I look at big things, and that shit freaks me out. I can see that like from my house, and it's like the fact that it's 160 meters up in the air, and it is just a metal tube, just one big metal stick with a glass dome on it with a bunch of people 160 meters in the air, right next to the sea, freaks me out. Like if I look at it, I start getting all like dizzy and shit, and it's like it's really, really odd.
I find it odd when I go for a smoke at night times. We have a motion detecting light on the side of the house and it randomly turns on. I've never seen anything, not a rabbit, a cat, a deer, anything. It just turns on. Doesn't freak me out, but makes me think, what's triggering this light on? Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, because like my parents, when I used to live there, my parents had a motion detecting light and it would come on all the time, and there was nothing ever around. Like in the residential, it's just a backyard. There's no trees, nothing. So anything can really trigger that. I don't know. I mean, lights are a little bit more explainable than it, but I mean, again, but I like where your head's at. Like for me, I never eliminate the possibility of something that I can't explain out of my mind. Like I always try to think, what if that actually is? So I'm with you. I have some pretty intense experiences myself that I've had to deal with through the years. I believe it. I believe you. I believe if you were to tell me a story, I'd sit there and be super in tune with it, and I would believe anything you had to tell me, because I've not necessarily because I've experienced it myself, and I have experienced something myself, but because I don't ever shut off my brain to something that I believe to be impossible. I know you, and I know you're a straight shooter, so I really do believe you, but I can't 100% believe in ghosts and the paranormal until I can get my own evidence and own experiences that I, without a doubt, cannot disprove. And that goes with what Default's saying, man. And I get that. Like, I totally get that. But again, I wouldn't wish on you what happened to me or anything similar at all, because if you live the rest of your life not believing because you haven't experienced anything, then I'm okay with that, because there's no reason for you to experience it. And it's not something like people will say, like they'll go to haunted stuff, attractions, and go to haunted places and try to use a Ouija board and try to call these things, and like it's not funny. It's not okay. No. You shouldn't be doing this, because what you're doing, you're messing with energy.
I've used those before, and I think it's partially what makes me on the side of actually not believing, because I don't know if the people who were using it were using it the same way I was. Like, I don't know if they were just messing with me. Like, you don't know.
So if you'll
never 100% know.
If you don't using like Ouija boards and stuff, it's like it is one thing, it is the other thing, but it's very different. Like, that's not how things work on that kind of level. So like, if JR whipped out a Ouija board and some candles and was like, square up, let's go, I highly doubt something was going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
If you don't believe while using a Ouija board, nothing's going to happen. No. Nothing's going to happen. But if you go into a Ouija board and having some understanding of what spiritual things are and having some belief, I believe that what you're going to do is connect to something. Whether you want to be connected to it or not, I don't know, because there's no evidence or way of understanding how people that use actual Ouija boards are connecting to whatever they're connecting to. There's no way of understanding that. But I believe if you go into something that has an energy connected to it, and you go in with a mindset that we're actually going to be calling something, and you want to attract something, you will attract something. Yeah. And I've touched a Ouija board once, and this could be completely coincidental. A friend of mine bought a Ouija board over to another friend's house that we were all at, like 15 to 20 of us, and they decided that they wanted to do a Ouija board, and I was like, fuck no, because I believe this at a very young age. I'm out. I'm leaving. I went to leave, and they fucking forced me on the floor and rubbed the board all over me, right? Everybody that touched that board, that did the fucking Ouija board in that basement of that old ass house, got sick, including me. Everybody. And it could be coincidental, but everybody got really, really fucking sick. All of us got the fever, and the people that were in that house that didn't do the Ouija board didn't get sick. The parents, the people upstairs, and some of the people downstairs that weren't taking part in whatever they were trying to do didn't get sick. But we did. I got sick. And again, could be completely coincidental. It's not something I ever like. But I will never do a Ouija board. And also, a lot of it has to do with authentic Ouija boards. Like Ouija boards from back in the day.
Yeah, that's something I was going to bring up. It's like, how, like, we were using some Ouija board from, like, Walmart or something. Like, how stuff like that's so commercialized. Like, what's so special about that one from Walmart versus something like you said that was used back in the day, or like that, like, or even now, like, I'm sure there's maybe like a practice to making one, but like what's the difference between a Ouija board from Walmart and one that was actually made for that intent? Like,
Yeah.
that's why I didn't really believe it too much. I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, it's like you could sell a camera that would be like, oh, it's a ghost capturing camera,
Yeah.
but it might just have like a specific light filter that
Mm-hmm.
captures a certain part of the light frequency that looks weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
You get like a little glimmer of light that looks like a person, and then you start calling it a person.
yeah. I mean, obviously, there's instances of both. There's both sides,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. I mean, it is what it is. You get the same people who kind of. There is obviously like a practice to it, very much. There's very much authentic and non-authentic variants of a lot of things like that. So it's one of those things. I don't really know a whole lot about Ouija boards.
That's a good practice, not to know anything about them.
Fuck that.
The more you know, the more you're gonna hurt yourself, and the more you're gonna fucking attract something you don't want attached to you.
What's the term I'm looking for? I'm competently ignorant when it comes to things like that.
That's good. That's good.
Have you guys had any UFO experiences? That's
No.
something I wanted to talk about. No?
I've not had any. No, I've never seen anything.
so-
I have something. I'll save it for the next one, because it's more of like a dream thing. But
we're gonna do dreams next week.
We'll do dreams next
Mhm.
week. That's gonna be an interesting.
And that'll be a
one.
good one. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing in that regard. But what I can tell you, if you guys are, you want to add any last remarks in here, let's do it because we're very far in.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys. Yeah. So we're gonna call the podcast here. I don't really have the words to describe today's show. I don't. I really don't.
it got
Being a journey would be the word.
yes.
Being a
Yes.
journey.
This will be the longest podcast that we've done to date. Just
There were some
2
things
hours.
that were talked about today that I have only told to a handful of people, and I'm sure you probably
Yeah, I'm
guys
with you on
probably
that, yeah.
relate.
Yeah, I thought today was good. It was also like a therapy session too, because we got to talk
Yeah.
about things that we don't
Mm-hmm.
really fear wise. But yeah, guys, it's just about over 2 hours. We are going to call the podcast here. Very, very intense. I do apologize for losing myself, and you're going to say, oh, don't, whatever. It's fine. I get that. But I do apologize for that. But if you guys have any stories or comments or anything else that you want to include, attach it to this podcast. When it's uploaded on the YouTube channel, please do it in the comment section. It's going to be there on Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you check that out. Again, I want to thank Justin and Bailey for being here this morning with me. Had a fantastic conversation as always. Chat, thank you so much for being here. If you guys took part in the live podcast, we really, really appreciate it. And we love having you guys here. We're going to be live next week, next Friday morning between 8 and 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for talking about dreams. That's also going to be a very intense
this
episode.
is the first time we've had a topic set in stone for the next week.
Yes.
So,
Well, this is the second
have
time
some
because
time-
since the first episode, the rest of them. Just
well,
what do we
true,
talk
true,
about? I
true.
don't know.
I don't know.
All right, guys.
So we'll have some time to think about it and make up.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna
find some
be
good stories
it's
for
gonna be a good conversation. So if you guys have anything about dreams
Yeah.
or like what's the word when you can't move in the middle of a night and you're
Sleep paralysis.
sleep paralysis. If you guys got stories about that, I have one story about that which I'll save for next week. Anyways, we're going to call it here, guys. Thank you for joining us again. I appreciate it. If you're looking for us, you can find us outside of the podcast. Obviously, you can find me here at twitch.tv/DudeiRage, twitter.com/DudeiRage. You can find Mr. Justin here at jbriswa at instagram.com, and Bailey at twitter.com, n3tsy_, and then n3tsy at twitch.tv. Make sure you guys check all of us out. Keep up with us. I love you guys.
Holla at your boy.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you for watching or listening. That's what I wanted to say. We'll see you next time, guys. Love you guys.
Later, boyos.
Bye.
Later.